Before we begin, let's take a moment to celebrate this win. You showed up. You're here because you care about investing in your health. I'm so proud of you. I hope you are too. Hi, friend. I'm Marilee. I'm a certified menstrual coach. And when it comes to your cycle, I'm here to help you get it together. Today's topic is a hot one for sure. We're going to be taking an in depth look at the top three hormones of our menstrual cycles: estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone. We are going to dig into each season of your cycle and we're going to see just how these hormones affect our daily lives through our energy, our emotions, our productivity, all the things. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says there is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. Just as God designed nature to move through cycles, He also designed our bodies to move through these hormonal cycles and shifts each and every month. So settle in, grab a sippy. I've got kombucha. It's still Valentine's Day kombucha because it's still February, and that's like the hottest kombucha right now in the markets is this Valentine's one. It's really good. And let's chat. So, first, we're going to talk about estrogen and its role in the follicular phase. Estrogen is primarily produced in the ovaries and it has a lot of functions, one of them being to help rebuild the uterine lining after menstruation. And it also helps to increase serotonin and dopamine, which are neurotransmitters that boost mood and motivation. So, some effects of estrogen on your daily life could be increased energy, confidence, mental clarity. It's a really great time for socializing and problem solving and learning new skills. Things that would typically seem harder or, more annoying to do in other phases of your cycle aren't as bad to do here because the presence of estrogen also regulates cortisol, which is known as the stress hormone. So when estrogen is in play, you may not be as stressed, which is really awesome. And so if you are someone who hates going to the doctor or has like a hard task coming up that you've kind of been putting off, doing it in your follicular phase when your estrogen is on the rise is like the best thing that you could do to help that because it's going to be a little bit easier to get that done. It's not going to seem as impossible to do when you have estrogen in play. Estrogen also has a bit of a suppressed effect on your appetite and your metabolism slows a bit, so you may not feel like you need to eat as much in this phase. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You're probably like, wow, estrogen sounds great. Like, let's just have estrogen all the time. Like, I'm confident, I'm thinking straight. Like, let's just have all the estrogen, right? Wrong. Very wrong. Please remember that too much of a good thing is ultimately a bad thing. And there is a thing such as estrogen dominance, which we will get into in depth when we go into our PMS episode for sure. But uh, that can kind of happen when your body isn't properly excreting the estrogen that it's used properly. So instead of it being kicked out as waste, it's getting reabsorbed back into the bloodstream and it is contributing to a number of things that are not fun. So we'll talk more about that, but keep in mind like we want balance everywhere. We never want too much of one specific hormone. We really need everything to be level because that's how our body best works in flow. But during this phase in follicular, when your estrogen is rising and you're feeling all these amazing things, this is the verse that I like to think of. Proverbs 31:17. She sets about her work vigorously. Her arms are strong for her task. Like, this is the epitome of follicular with estrogen on the rise for me. Like, I'm like planning everything. I'm like, all right, we can get this done. Let's do this. Let's do that. That's kind of the vibe. It's really, really awesome. So I would suggest that you take advantage of this phase for like goal setting, planning, networking, and those like higher intensity workouts because you have a lot of energy in this phase too. And I know there's a lot of controversy when it comes to like your workouts and everything when it's like around cycle syncing and stuff. My number one advice for you is to do whatever feels best for you. Okay. I am not a doctor. I'm definitely not your doctor. I'm just a certified girly who's had a period for a long time and I learned a lot of different things. And for me personally, when I switch up my workouts depending on how my body is feeling, depending on what phase I'm in, it really helps me. And maybe that's not the case for everybody. I am not here to tell you that that's what it is because it's probably, I don't know you. I don't know you. I don't know your life story. And I'm not here to prescribe anyone anything. I just want to make that so super clear. Do whatever is best for you, girl. My methodology is that this works for me. If you are in a situation where you don't know what to do, maybe you can try this out and see if it helps. That's all I'm saying. But I like to do higher intensity workouts when I have my estrogen on the rise because I have a lot more energy. I'm feeling really pumped and like, yes, I can like do everything. So that's how I like to look at it. After follicular, when we go into ovulation, that is when we start to get the presence of testosterone. Testosterone is typically known as a male hormone, but like girlies, we make it too. It's one of our key hormones when it comes to our cycle. It peaks during ovulation and it really enhances our libido, our risk taking behavior, and our attractiveness. And that's actually scientifically proven. Like during like our ovulation phase, like honestly, our body's like, all right, we are trying to get pregnant. We need people to think we're cute so we can get pregnant. So, like, your skin may look a little better. You may feel a little better. Like, you'll look a little bit more glowy. Like, your features will look a little bit more sharp. Like, you do scientifically like become more attractive when you're in this phase because your body's trying to attract a mate in order to produce baby. But other effects of testosterone on our daily lives would include things like feeling more assertive, feeling more charismatic. Like, this is a really great time to do big leadership tasks, or if you have like a big public speaking thing, now is the best time to do those things, or like a presentation or a meeting that you're going to be talking a lot in. That is the really amazing time for you to just kind of like get all of your ideas out. Your ideas will be really clear. Honestly, I'm recording this on day 4 of my menstrual phase. And so I feel like I have to work even harder to be coherent. Versus if I had just recorded this in my, late follicular like ovulation phase, like I feel like I'd be recording these a lot easier. And I have noticed that when I record in those phases, like things are just a lot more effortless for me. I don't really need to look at my notes as much. I can just really like spew everything off and I'm just going and I'm in flow. It's a little harder for me, but I didn't really want to wait until that phase to get this recorded. So yeah. But during this phase, your verbal skills are just enhanced in general. So, like I said, like public speaking stuff or even like having difficult conversations. This is a great time to do that. If you need to have a chat with your SO, if you want to ask for a raise, like any kind of stuff like that, do it in your ovulation phase if you can, because you will just be a lot more kick butt in that time, if you know what I mean. In this phase in particular, the verse that I like to look at is Joshua 1:9. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. This is the perfect time for you to do something outside of your comfort zone, to be strong and be courageous. Testosterone has that effect on us. And then after we ovulate, we go into the luteal phase with the main star of the show being progesterone. So after ovulation, the corpus luteum, which is the empty follicle that's left behind in the ovary after the egg is ovulated, that begins to create progesterone. And this hormone is basically preparing the body for the possibility of pregnancy. Progesterone does a lot of things. Like, primarily, it is the main factor that thickens the uterine lining, which, if you're not pregnant, you will then shed at the beginning of your bleed. But it's also promoting a sense of calm. Again, I like to call it the nesting hormone because that's essentially what's going to make you want to be cleaning everything, preparing everything, reflecting. And again, like this is fall, so it's a really great time to harvest everything that you've planted and sown. And it just really encourages a lot of like deep thinking and emotional depth, and a desire for comfort. And so you're really just trying to get everything done so that way when you get into your menstrual phase, you can just rest and relax, right? But the interesting thing is that In this phase, you have like an increased sensitivity to stress. And so it's really important to prioritize rest and self care here. And I'm going to get really sciencey for a bit, but it's really going to help you understand why prioritizing rest and keeping your stress levels low during this time are imperative. So there's this concept called the cortisol steal. And the best way for me to break this down is to kind of start with the idea that cholesterol, basically, cholesterol is a fatty compound. It's a lipid, which helps your body do a whole bunch of important tasks. One of them being creating hormones. We need our hormones, right? And cholesterol will then create pregnenolone. It creates, a few other things too, like adrenaline, stuff like that. But pregnenolone is the precursor to majority of all of our other hormones that we need, including estrogen, testosterone, all those kinds of things. Pregnenolone is that precursor. During your follicular phase, you're making DHEA from pregnenolone, and DHEA is the precursor to estrogen and then also testosterone. So pregnenolone creates DHEA, which then creates estrogen, testosterone, like a whole bunch of other sex hormones, right? We need those. Also, when you go into your luteal phase after you ovulate, pregnenolone will then create progesterone. And what's really interesting here is that when you're stressed in any other phase, you have other hormones to help balance out the effect of cortisol. Cortisol, again, is your stress hormone. Your body does not differentiate stress. Stress is stress. Like, your body does not understand the difference between a hard deadline at work or, being in a financially tight situation. It doesn't differentiate those things from running from your life from like zombies or a man-eating bear or anything like that. Something that's a lot more like life or death. Your body does not understand the difference. Your body is like stress is stress. So that creates your body to then say, it is more important for us to survive versus doing anything that's imperative for our reproductive system. So then it will take some of the progesterone to then create more cortisol in your luteal phase specifically. And inevitably cortisol is meant to save your life, right? It's your body trying to make decisions that will essentially like save you, but it's very counterproductive when you are stressing out over very minutia things because you're going to feel super stressed, on high alert, and really on edge all of the time. And if your body is stealing from your progesterone production to create more cortisol with those lower levels of progesterone, you could experience insomnia, you could feel really anxious, angry, you could be depressed, you could have mood swings. You're ultimately just going to feel like you're losing your mind a little bit. And that actually has a lot to do with our hormone levels and women that go into menopause and what that is like. And we'll talk more of that as well. But it's really important to just take a moment to make sure that your stress levels are in check. Like, one of the biggest causes of hormonal imbalance and PMS is stress. And that could seem like a bit of a cycle in the sense of like, oh, well, I'm stressed and that creates bad symptoms, and that those bad symptoms create more stress in my body. It could seem like a never ending cycle. There is a way. Um, Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." So like in this phase, like you really just need to take that time to be still mentally. Of course, the progesterone is still having you do little tasks and everything and you're cleaning and stuff like that. But mentally, you need to find a way to be still. It is so important that you lower your stress levels. In the other phases, you're more equipped to handle stress for sure because you have other hormones like estrogen and testosterone helping you out along the way and then making it a little bit easier for you to digest. But when they start to decline and progesterone starts to be on the rise, like naturally, cortisol will rise when estrogen starts to decline naturally. And then when you have progesterone coming into play, trying to get you prepared and do all of these things, your body's like, but I'm still stressed. We don't need to do that. let's make more stress. That is going to have such a negative impact on you and will ultimately kind of fuel and add charcoal to the flames of your PMS. Just as we have to trust God's timing and embrace the seasons in life, we really also need to embrace the need to slow down in this phase of our cycle. So, a really great thing to do here is to just kind of, like I said, focus on yourself, get your little tasks done, meal prep, do home projects, and just keep your stress levels low as much as you possibly can while still, getting everything that you need to get done. So that way, when you get to your menstrual phase, everything is just serene. Ultimately, it's a great time to clean up loose ends and plan ahead. Okay, so we talked a bit about when the hormones are there, but what happens when they're not? If there's no pregnancy, estrogen and progesterone will dip super sharply, triggering menstruation and the shedding of your uterine lining. This hormonal crash, if you're not prepared for it, can cause fatigue, mood swings, irritability, and increased cravings for comfort food. And what these effects can kind of look like on your daily life with the absence of your hormones, you'll probably be a bit more sensitive to a lot of different things. For example, light sensitivity, food sensitivity, smells, all those kinds of things. Ultimately, you'll probably be a bit more tired. You really just want to rest and not worry about too much. And honestly, this is a great time to. Like, we have to build in rest. Naturally, it's easier for us to do it, but we really just have to build in rest to everything that we're doing. And this is also a really great time to practice more introspection and also like boundary setting. This is so important for you to establish your boundaries in this phase specifically. This isn't necessarily like a phase per se, but it's like that last week right before your period when your hormones are starting to decline. And then, boom, when they actually plummet and you go into your bleed, that's that kind of gray area that we're talking about. But this is a really great time for you to tell people like, "Oh no, I'm not going out this weekend. Like I'm having me time." Or you can even just straight up tell them like, "Oh, I'm starting my period this week. Like I'm chilling at home." I even have it on my work calendar. At the top of my Google Calendar, I have like the seasons of like what that week is, and if it's winter or luteal or like the week before winter as well, I will remove all of the ones from my calendar that aren't necessary, like aren't imperative. Like unless it's like for the good of the project, for something to get done. If this is just like a coffee chat, I'm deleting it. And people know that. Like I will delete it. I'll reschedule in follicular or ovulation. Like I'm in spring or summer when it says on my calendar. My calendar has winter, spring, summer, fall. If there's a 1 during winter, it's getting moved. Where you're going to spring, you're going to summer. Like, and people are okay with that. You just have to tell them. And honestly, you don't even have to tell them if you don't want to. Like, it's your prerogative. You can just move a meeting and not say why if it's not imperative for your actual job. Key. Matthew 11:28 says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, I will give you rest." Again, this is a beautiful time for rest and reflection and prayer and just quiet time with God. And honestly, just give yourself permission to say no to any other responsibilities and really just use this time to like journal, pray, and do restorative activities like walking or stretching. Just take care of yourself. Let yourself be the priority when your hormones are at their lowest. That's the best way to kind of look at it. So that's all I have for you for today's episode. I hope it was not too much, but still easily digestible, but still also really informative. I just really want to emphasize that, like, just as God designed the seasons of nature, He designed the seasons within us. And by honoring our cycle, we also align with his wisdom. So I just want to encourage you to continue tracking your cycle, listening to your body, praying, digging deep, and just taking the time to understand like how your body works and who she is. And give yourself grace as you're going through these shifts. Honestly, once I learned about my hormonal clocks and the shifts and how they affected my mood, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not two-phased. This is great. Like I actually had an understanding of what was causing me to feel one way one day and completely different the next. So Let that language be what you use to address yourself and how you're feeling. And let that also be how you communicate to others so that they also have a clear understanding of what you're going through and how you're showing up as well. I believe that we will have so much more beautiful understanding in the world of each other if we can just be a little bit more vulnerable. So, as we come to a close on this week's episode, I'd love to leave you with this question. I would love to know, in what season do you feel the effects of your hormonal shift the most? Like, is it in summer? Like, do you just feel all of the effects of the testosterone and estrogen being at their peak? Is it on your period and you just absolutely feel the absence of your hormones? And what does that feel like? Like, what's the biggest shift that you personally feel and experience? I think for me, um, oh man, I ask good questions. I think for me, I feel the effects of my hormonal shift the most. I would say in my luteal phase, actually. That's always so apparent to me because when I tell you I am a cleaning machine, okay, like I am dusting everything, vacuuming like every day, wiping everything down. That is like the best time for me to get everything done. Like my to do list, just check, 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 check. Honestly, my luteal phase is where I feel the effects the most. I really do. That nesting hormone turns all the way on during that phase. And then, of course, I have to leave you with an affirmation for the week as well. Whenever you're in a moment of feeling like your hormones are against you, when you're not happy with how you're feeling and you're like, oh, why do I feel this way? Or like, what are my hormones doing? I don't know what's going on. I just want you to take a moment to stop and breathe. And I want you to say, my hormones are my superpowers. My hormones are my superpowers. My hormones are my superpowers. Take that. Believe that. Internalize that. Your hormones are your superpowers. You're just still learning how to use them. And that's okay. We're going to get there. And when we do get there, girl, you're going to be unstoppable. You're going to be like Storm. You're going to be like, um, well, I don't want to say Scarlet Witch because she low key got offed, but she's coming back, right? Okay, well, I think that's it for today. I'm going to wrap up there. Thank you so much for being here. Have a blessed rest of your week. Enjoy. I'll see you in the next one.